Now, a BBC show tells the story of Muhammad, but it doesn't show his face because Muslims would find it insulting. Is that right and proper, or another example of what people claim is a fear of offending Muslims? Some depictions of Muhammad have caused widespread anger and violent protest amongst Muslims, particularly satirical images like the Danish cartoons, which included a picture of Muhammad with a bomb under his turban. Now the BBC has chosen to tell the biographical story of Muhammad without using his visual image, in line with Islamic tradition.
He's beyond everything and we don't represent God. But in order to be quite clear in this relationship with God, we never represent or have an image of any of the prophets. So it's not only the last prophet, Muhammad, it's all the prophets, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, are not seen and drawn and anything like this in Islam.
Neither the Quran or the Hadiths that tell the story of Muhammad strictly forbid his depiction, but showing his face is seen by many Muslims as idolatry, the worship of an idol. By obeying their teachings, do we show our respect to Muslims and their beliefs? Is it a sign of our tolerance as a society? Or are we caving in to a religion that remains a minority in the UK? After all, why are we open to ridiculing Christianity in a Christian country, yet shy away from offending Islam? Is our ability to insult a religion essential for healthy criticism and debate, or does it just alienate believers and breed conflict between faiths? What do you think? Are we scared of offending Muslims? You can join in by webcam or make your point by phone, by text, by email or online. And Anne Atkins joins us again. Anne, welcome back. Is it self-censorship out of respect, or is it fear that makes us avoid even showing a picture of the person that we're talking about?
I haven't seen this particular programme, but the thing is that good manners seldom cost us very much. It was very interesting that you had a clip of Life of Brian there, which is one of my favourite films of all time. I think it's absolutely hilarious.
Lampooning Christianity.
But I have to say, I found the last minute or two really deeply offensive. And I can't watch the last couple of minutes because it is ridiculing...
Do you mean the crucifixion
scene? Yeah, the crucifixion scene. Now, the rest of the film, I think, is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. But for myself, I wish that it hadn't had that last bit at the end, and I don't think it would have lost anything. Now, this particular instance, what do we lose by not showing a picture of Muhammad in a documentary series about Muslims? Absolutely nothing, as far as I can see. And if that makes it more comfortable viewing, for it doesn't matter if it's a tiny minority, it's simply good manners. Now, where it becomes worrying is when we can't express opinion, where actually a freedom of speech is curtailed. For instance, if you can't challenge it. Here's an example. My husband, I'm married to a clergyman, and when he became the parish vicar, he was invited into the church school to give assembly. And the very first assembly he did, he talked about Jesus' claim to be the way, the truth and life. He was never invited back, because that, the headmistress or somebody thought that might offend somebody in the school. That is curtailing freedom of speech. Not showing a picture, frankly, it's not. It's only television.
Although, Ajmal, Anne Atkins chooses not to watch the things which she finds offensive. Couldn't Muslims do the same?
The biggest problem we have is Prophet Muhammad's face is not photographed ever. No, there is no picture of him. Nobody has ever drawn it, and there is no accurate description of him. So how would you bring that image? Who would you get to depict it?
There's no photograph of plenty of
no, I understand.
people in religious
I pretty much understand that argument.
But people, of course,
I'm
do
saying,
sketches and
so with
impressions based on historical
With the story of Muhammad, I agree with Anne that absolutely right, it's good manners. But I agree with her that freedom of speech must always be embedded in everything that we say. So, if there is something that you disagree or we disagree with Islam, we should have every right to challenge it. If we disagree with anything anybody says, we must be allowed to speak out our mind. But here is one simple thing. We're just being good to one another by saying, okay, we'll be sensitive to one thing, and that is, we will not show the face of Muhammad. How did we lose out of it?
Okay.
No, I think good manners are important,
yes.
But first point is there are representations of Muhammad because
not contemporary, of course.
No, not contemporary, but there are medieval Persian representations of Muhammad. Now, when you're talking about a television series, you're talking about something which is in the grammar of the visual, and something. Now, the majority of people in this country are not Muslims, and therefore they cannot be accused of idolatry if they look upon the representation of the Prophet Muhammad. Therefore, they can't be guilty of the thing that you are most worried about. So this offence...
But I'm not worried about that.
So the offence that we're talking about, the offence that we're talking about would have to be an absolutely deliberate idea of wanting to take offence at something that somebody else has done. And I can't see why you want to do that.
Who says it's an offence? That's a bigger question. Second question is, there are lots of camera programs or TV programs that we have where the camera itself becomes the person and it does tell a story. We are saying, how can we cleverly make a story? How can we portray Muhammad is a bigger discussion. But if you're worried about people saying you can't say anything about Islam, if you're worried that you cannot express your views challenging Islam, then that particular view is wrong.
Can I give another example? When I was an undergraduate, we did a lot of student reviews and stuff. And one of the things, and you know, when you're students, you are experimenting with stuff. And funnily enough, in this very same review, there was an item about communion, which I happened to find offensive. I didn't make a big deal about it because it didn't matter to me much. But there was a sketch about an air crash, right? I didn't think it was funny. That doesn't matter. One person on one night left the theatre in tears because his brother had just been killed in an air crash. That was not worth it. That sketch was not worth it for the amount of pain that that member of the audience had. Now, I don't think we lose anything, David, by not,
No. Actually, I think... although I am inclined to agree with you a lot, by the examples you're giving, I'm distancing myself further and further away. Not only would that film, Life of Brian, have lost an enormous amount by not having had only look on the bright side of, always look on the bright side of life. It really, really would, Anne, because of all the other circumstances under which you would do it. And so we also lose something by saying we are so worried about the sensibilities here that we will not show those representations of the Prophet Muhammad that do exist and which, were this film about anybody else in any other
Would you
situation,
object if they were included, the medieval representations?
Within the Muslim community, there is an understanding that his image would not be shown. But if the non-Muslim society wanted to show something, who are Muslims to say to the non-Muslims, you can't? We can, of course, just like freedom of expression, protest that, sorry, you should not have done that, but ultimately the decision would have been yours. But more importantly, David, I would like you to give us... Yeah, I would like to ask you a question which is more specific. Is there anything about Islam you feel frightened of saying? And if the society at large in this country feels that they cannot say things honestly because they're too scared of offending
I've given you an example.
I would be the first one to say...
of my husband being censored because somebody somewhere, not a Muslim, not a member of a minority faith, somebody somewhere thought it might be offensive to somebody in the school. So that is censorship.
I want to talk to Andrew Marsh because he's on our webcam and he's from Christian Concern for Our Nation. Do you think that Christians should be more offended by some of the things that are shown?
Well, I think, yes, on occasion, Christians should speak up more. Christians are concerned about truth, and where there are portrayals of Christianity that are inaccurate in the national media, and we've seen how important the national media and local media are in the national debate, where there's inaccuracy or particularly caricature, I think it's important that Christians do speak up about that for the sake of the national debate and discourse. And Jesus Christ is not afraid of robust debate. I think he's compelling, he's reliable, relevant in his own right, and the historical testimony bears witness to that. It stands up to scrutiny. But what has happened with regard to Christianity, I think, is it's become too easy, rather than to engage with those realities in a responsible way, to resort to ridicule and rubbishing, and particularly caricature. And when we're relying on, for example, commentators like Christopher Hitchens, whose explanation of the Christian message is so far from the mark that it turns the Christian message upside down, I think that we are doing a disservice to our public debate and discourse, and the public deserves a more reliable and possibly at times a more respectful approach.
OK, Adam Dean is an Islamic scholar and also joins us. Some would say there's a perception that Islam is less tolerant than Christianity. Are they right?
Firstly, I'm not an Islamic scholar. Just I thought I'd say that. But
apologies.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
Is that Islam, Adam is worried that people will call him up and say, how dare you claim to be an Islamic scholar?
Adam, how would you describe yourself?
A Muslim thinker.
A Muslim thinker. Adam Dean, Muslim thinker. Is Islam less tolerant than Christianity?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think what's important is who is the Muslim and who is the Christian in question. We will find many examples of Muslims who behave in a tolerant manner when their faith is criticised. And regarding the discussion so far, I think we're actually missing the elephant in the room, and that is that the programme is effectively objective in looking at the life of Muhammad, peace be upon him. Why? Because they have someone on the show who's called Robert Spencer. And Robert Spencer calls him all sorts of Muhammad, peace be upon him, all sorts of horrible names and makes him out to be an opportunist and a warlord. So I think we're nitpicking. I think we're losing focus of the actual documentary.
All right, Adam, well, you can make your mind up because you can see the second programme in the Life of Muhammad series because it's on tomorrow night at 9 o'clock on BBC Two.